Welcome to Life's Nuggets with Susan and Patricia. And today we're going to talk about cognitive labor, Susan.
Yes,
But just so that everybody, including us, knows what that
we're
means,
talking
here,
about it's real. We
it's
can't see it.
we can't see it, but it's real. I found a definition. Let me
Right.
tell you what it is. Cognitive labor, for thinking about it in the home, is the thinking aspect of labor, which consists of the management, tracking, and monitoring of household tasks. It is the mental or invisible labor that we are doing to keep ourselves organized, but it's separate from the actual physical act of getting our stuff done. Now, here's what's also interesting, Susan, is that they have identified four components of cognitive labor. So the first
Okay.
one is anticipating your needs. So this is what we go through when we're thinking of cognitive labor. We
Okay.
anticipate needs.
Right.
And the second thing is we identify options for fulfilling those needs.
Okay, makes sense.
Third one is decide among those options which one you're going to go with.
Okay.
And then the last one is monitoring these needs, making sure decisions are executed and addressed. That is cognitive labor
Right.
on that definition.
Invisible it is. I would 100%. And I think most women listening to this would agree. It is completely invisible because people just don't. And I think the thing is, you know what, until you mentioned this terminology to me, I had no idea I actually had a terminology. It's just things you do, right?
100%.
You grow up, you have your life, you get into a relationship, life moves on and you just move on with it, right? You can hardly stand still. But you just don't realize you're doing it. And when you said to me cognitive labor, I was like, holy crap. Yeah, there's a lot going on in there, right?
It really is. I heard this actually on another podcast a few years ago, and I was like, oh my God, there's an actual term to this, which I never, like you had said, you just kind of do what you do.
Do
Um,
it.
and I thought it was fascinating. So just maybe to put it more in perspective, here's my example of cognitive labor. Um, is we tend to host a lot of dinners, and every once in a while I'm like, okay, I'm kind of tired. It's been a busy week. And my husband just is like, well, I don't know what the big deal is. We'll just make something. But here's the difference between his job and my job when we're hosting a dinner. I'm the one that, what are we going to make? He helps with the menu. So that's figuring things out. But I do the grocery list. I go out and get the groceries. So I have to figure out what it is that, what are we making? What do I need in my grocery list? What do we already have? When am I going to go out and do it? How am I going to get the table ready? Does my house need to be cleaned? And when am I going to find the bloody
Time for that.
for that?
Or do
Um,
I just give my guests blinkers and ask them not to look?
don't look in either direction. Make sure that
Break the
there's toilet
bathroom.
paper in the washroom and a fresh towel. So, what platters? Oh, we've had issues around this where I'm like, okay, here are the different platters. I've decided that this will fit with this. And he doesn't get it very well. It's like, okay, well, now you're taking a plate and I actually don't have that many plates and you're, on and on and on it goes. But I'm thinking through all the different things that go into it. And he just like, okay, he just shows up ready to cook with me, which is great. But he doesn't
He's
think
not
about,
aware.
he's not aware of all the other things that are going into it. So that is cognitive labor.
Yeah.
And women do this. Okay, you're a mom. You moms are doing this all the time, right?
Well, that's why when you said to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what we've been doing all these years. And you just do it because you have to, right? You can't not do it. You just do it. But it's true that there are days and, you kind of, I feel, and I read a post the other day, something about, children greatest thing, blah, 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 but when they leave, you kind of lose something. And I'm like, no, because I don't feel you're losing something. I feel more that you're seeing all that cognitive labor that you put in. You're kind of seeing it come to fruition in some shape or form.
Oh,
Right?
I love that.
Um, And it's true, you get to see them now as young adults. Like, I don't feel this loss or this yearning for when they were younger. No, like, I loved it. I hated it at moments, to be honest. It was really hard, like, because there is all of that going on. But now they're young adults and they're figuring out their life and yeah, they still live at home, but they're essentially independent. You know, they come and go and figure their things out and we have dinner together, but that's it. But that cognitive labor that you were just talking about, a lot of it is gone. It's different, right?
Yeah.
You obviously still, you've got nephews and nieces, you still, you worry, you think about certain things, but not nearly as much because my involvement now in their day to day, they're doing that, right? It's
Yeah.
more the bigger
Manage
decision.
their own stuff.
Yeah, this is it. If they want to go see a friend, they go see a friend. They don't have to ask me to drive them, to pick them up. Does it fit in? Does it, all of that now has gone. But yeah, when they were younger, that cognitive labor was 100% there. I'd say 1,000% there. And, I feel in the last, yeah, 2, 3 years, it's gone. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm me again. How nice is that? You know, I can start doing things and schedule things without thinking always of other people. And I
Nice.
think that cognitive labor, but there are times I think during that period it is, and I can understand when women come and see you and say, I'm burnt out. It's like, yeah, you get burnt out. And I saw this other Instagram reel a couple of months ago, and it was an interview for a job. And these people were being interviewed, men, women, all sorts of ages, but I'd say probably from about 30 to 40. And they were like, you need to be multitasked, you need to be on call 24/7. And they were like, are there any holidays? And they're like, well, not really. Do I get time off? And they're like, possibly, but it's not guaranteed. Um, you have to be ready to deal with, and essentially they were describing being a stay-at-home parent. And it was so clever because you could see these people when they were going, well, do I get any holidays? And they're like, well, not 100%. Time off, weekends, no. Just, and you could see these people had no idea what they were being interviewed for, and it was absolutely priceless. And I
Love
think
that.
that is absolutely spot on. Whether you're stay at home, whether you work part-time home, whatever it is that you're doing, the minute those little creatures enter your lives, it's upside down for the next 17 years, like, or more. It's
I
brilliant.
think that the thing that I found really interesting, and you're right, like I'm getting clients who are really struggling with burnout, with overwhelm, some depression. And when we start to delve into some of those deeper things, to understand what's going on, one thing that comes out a lot is that they're just so overwhelmed with all the other things that the mental things that they're doing. And for the most part, what's interesting is that we don't give as women, and here's the other footnote to it, is that studies are showing that women are still the ones who are doing the bulk of this work, right? We're the ones that are organizing, thinking about who's picking up whom, we're outgrowing, so and so's outgrowing their clothes. We got to go get more stuff. What do we do with the old stuff? How can we pack it away? Blah, blah, blah. We are still doing the bulk of that work. And it's mental, and we're not giving ourselves credit to it. So then we're thinking, okay, we've got our jobs, and then we're going home with our kids, and we're still doing the bulk of the housework. We're still doing the bulk of the child rearing. There are great guys out there, but this is just the reality. We are still doing a lot of this. Some guys are right in, and we're not acknowledging that this is a part of our job, is this thinking. And so we're not giving ourselves grace or credit for it. And so we're struggling.
Yeah.
That's hurting us. So I guess then the next big question is, well, what can we do about it? And I think acknowledging everything that we're doing, because it is invisible, like you had said,
It is. Oh my gosh.
us.
As soon as you said that, I was like, yeah. Because like I said, you get mad, you get into and life just goes on, right? It's not like you can put things on pause. Well, you might if you are aware of it,
Yeah.
right? If you're aware of everything that you're doing, then yes, you might be able to say, hang on a second here, I need help, right? I can't do all of this on my own. But because you just kind of get on this hamster wheel, right? And unless somebody takes you out of it or takes you off it, or there's a reason to pause it, that hamster wheel just spins and you spin with it.
Yeah, I love that analogy. That's so true.
It really wasn't until you said that to me just what a week, couple of weeks ago, and I was like, oh my gosh, like yeah, I remember there are days you are just mentally exhausted because the minute you wake up to the minute you go to sleep, your mind is constantly, like you said, going from one thing to another to another. So as you said, if we acknowledge that as women, and then I don't know how would you make it visible? I think like you were suggesting it is to try and sit, but then how do you find the time? Right, this is it. It's
Got
finding
it.
that moment and getting the other person to acknowledge, because then, the often I find the thing is, oh, well, I do all of this, and it's like, well, okay, but then we somehow need to figure this out.
You need to figure it out because and we're just talking about the cognitive labor at home, but we need to acknowledge, and both men and women are doing this
This
with
is it.
our jobs, right? How much of our jobs are just finding creative solutions to things, thinking about, HR things, all these
Yeah.
different things. A lot of times our jobs, we're not just sitting there and doing paperwork or whatever we're doing. There's a lot of thinking and problem solving. So we're doing that at work and we're doing that at home. And that's a lot. So, and both men and women are doing this
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
at
this is
work,
it.
but women are tending to do more of it at home, which
The
is
home things.
adding. So, being visible, is making it visible, I think, and acknowledging it is the most important thing, and then sitting down with your partner and like starting to talk about things, and it's like maybe we do things like organize tasks, and
Mhm.
now you're in charge of this task beginning to end, and maybe you need to talk about the beginning
How
to,
you do it, yeah.
right, and then that person takes full responsibility and will start to understand kind of where you're at.
Coming from. Yeah, yeah. No, and it's making it, as you said, and I think it's also, I think the first part of it, as we said, is making it visible, right? Making the partner aware. You're not blaming, you're not shaming, you're just saying, I might need help here, right?
Go a
And
step further, Susan, and making it visible to us, because I don't
yes,
think we acknowledge it.
oh
Making it,
no, was
acknowledging it ourselves, and then,
yeah,
like you say, having a conversation with your partner about I need help.
yeah, I need help. And I think that would be one way of also, of dealing with it. I think the other is also just to, having acknowledged it is understanding that there are certain things we can let go of too, right? We don't have to do things exactly the same way that our families did them. So, prime example, anybody who's come to our house, we've got two dogs and a cat. I gave up years ago of vacuuming regularly. We don't have a cleaner. There's no point. There's too many of us in the house and too many pets. I just don't see what value that would bring to my life. It would bring more stress than anything, right? But I've just come to the conclusion that if there's fur on the floor in the corners, it doesn't mean our house is dirty. It means at some point I will have to vacuum. Right. And I think we do unfairly set these expectations on ourselves that everything has to be done all the time perfectly. You know,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
house needs to be always clean and tidy. The house needs to, and I just honestly, I gave up on that a while ago. I can't, if something needs to be vacuumed and it doesn't get done, it's not like it's going to come up and bite me. Do you mean? It's just gonna have to sit there and until I can get the vacuum round to it. And I will put them on my own blinkers and just like walk past and go, I didn't see that. I didn't see that. Because
I
there's
love it because
there's
what
no
you're talking about is perfectionism,
yeah,
which is a whole nother topic that we have to talk
delve
about.
into.
Such a huge thing, and it's hurting us so much.
Yeah.
Yes,
But
I
I think
love that you're doing that, Sue.
unconsciously, I think that was one of my ways of dealing with it. And my husband's great because for that, he's really not picky. Like he's not the guy that's going to go, ooh, I don't know many men that would, but some, oh, there's a bit, bit of dust on the ground. No. And then I realized it was me because my mom used to do that.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
mom used to vacuum every day because we had 3 dogs.
Oh, every day.
Yeah. And my stepdad used to say to you about like why we have dogs except that the house is going to be messy. She said, no. And I think unconsciously when my kids were younger, until they hit their teen years, I was always so a little bit, everything has to be, it's not acceptable if the house is lived in. Do you know what I mean? And it's these weird things we grow up with. And I'm like, this is my home. We are 5 people living in here. We're busy. We come in, we go out. There's friends coming in, there's pets coming in. If I wanted to have a model home, then I shouldn't have pets, right? Is kind of my conclusion to it. So I chose not to have a model home and I have pets instead, right? And I've made peace
A
with that.
very warm home, and it totally, you can tell a family lives there. And but in a really good way, right? It's warm, it's cozy,
But
it's lived in. And I
this
say
is,
that in a good way, right?
thank you. Furballs in the corner, but there we are. But
Not
I made
them, just
peace
so
with
you
it.
know.
And I think that was my way unconsciously of coping with it. I'm like, these things can wait. I've got other things that for me had a higher priority. And so I let that aspect go. I always try and make sure though that maybe it's the nursing coming out, that my sinks and toilets are clean. Just like,
Totally get that. Yeah.
clean. The rest can be a bit mucky, but there we are. So, but I agree, it's this cognitive, and I think that's something we put on ourselves because again, we're not aware of the cognitive labor.
You're not aware of it, but you know what? If somebody's not being thinking about things, stuff goes crap,
Yeah.
right? How do you function if somebody's not? But the trick here is to allocate and have help and talk about these things. And I think that for the biggest thing, this is what I'm seeing is that we really need to give ourselves grace and love and recognize that we are doing a lot. And like you said, maybe learn to let go and learn to communicate with your partner.
Yeah.
You're not failing because you ask for help.
This is it. And there's
And
no
that's a big
competition.
thing.
There's no grades given to how, and I think every family obviously is going to work it out differently, right? People are doing shift work. Some people, if partners are in the army, then they're deployed for months at a time. So of course it's going to be different, right? But I think, like you said, it's the first step really is recognizing that that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think already doing that, you can then go, okay, that's why I'm tired, right? I'm not tired because I don't know, I'm not organized or I'm doing too much or, because I think that's also something, oh, well, you're doing too much. It's like, no, I'm just doing what needs to be done.
Yeah. I agree. I agree.
But I think, like you said, and I think that's why it's important we're talking about this is just saying, hey, this is cognitive labor. It's not invisible. Like,
It's a
I,
thing.
it's a thing.
Thing.
And once we've understood that it is a thing, it's like, okay, then how can I manage it? Like, what can I do with this information that's going to make my life just a teeny bit easier? Right.
And
And I
also,
think,
you know what? The other thing too is that when we can deal with this and manage our own stress and
yeah,
take care of ourselves, we are that much more present for everything else in our lives, like our families, our
100,
jobs, our friends, all of that stuff. And that's important to know. So,
yeah,
on that note, um, if anybody has anything they want to share on that, we'd love to hear some comments. Hopefully,
yeah,
you got
always open to comments, right? Thoughts, ideas,
anything.
any,
Yes. Love that conversation, Susan. I thought that was great. And
yeah, what it was after all these years.
all these years, we finally got a name for it. All
Finally,
right. Okay, everybody, we'll see you next time. Take care.
fine.